Welcome to Ask Earl Anything. This is the show where your questions make the show. Without questions, I do not have a show. We do have some questions for our first Ask Earl Anything in January 2023. Can you believe it? Interesting thing for me is in 2018, in January 2018 is when we started Ask Earl Anything. So this has been going on. We're now in our 6th year of doing this. It's been exciting. I've brought it down to once a month, but to be honest, it's one of my favorite shows to do, and I have so many great subscribers and friends that love to ask questions, so I always look forward to it, and I've got a bunch of questions today. Now, before we get started, I'll say a couple things. I hope you had a happy New Year. Hopefully you have had a Merry Christmas. Right behind me is one of my Christmas presents. You might only see part of it. It's a neon sign from my daughter. It says, "On the air," live on the air. So with that said, it was a good Christmas. Santa was good to me this year. So I had a lot of fun with that. Couple things, administrative things. We do have a spring store. We do have a spring store. Where I have a mug and this wonderful t-shirt. This is the t-shirt I created for my community in Earldrum land. So this is the Earldrum Spring Store. I have a mug that says Ask Earl Anything on it. And you're going to see a video about that right now, because my first question comes from my good friend John, who's in 805 Breeze on YouTube. He's a Jerseyite. He lives in New Jersey, and I met with him this summer, and he's got a video question. So let me ask that video question. John, go ahead.
Hey Earl, it's John from the Jersey Shore, just checking in. Hope you and your family had a great Christmas holiday, and I've been getting a lot of use out of my Ask Earl Anything mug. I use it every day, and your online store is great. My question for this month is, in your opinion, what's the biggest differences between the Paiste PST7s and the Paiste 2002s? And also, if you think the 2002s are worth the extra money. Anyway, thank you for continuing to inspire me and people from all over the world with your channel. Take care, and God bless.
All right, thank you, John, for that question. And John had a great question. The first question for Ask Earl Anything today is, are the PST7s, what's the difference between the PST7s and the Paiste 2002s? And is it worth the money going to the higher end 2002s? And what are my opinions of the PST7s? Well, let me first say this. A good friend of mine on YouTube, his name is Jim Huey, Jim Flies 2. He is a big PST7 guy. He's actually has a set of PST7s. He's got some nice crash cymbals. The PST7s have become like the Paiste 505 line in that they are the poor man's 2002 cymbal today. So when you think of B8 alloy, Paiste B8 alloy, and you think of a nice cymbal in a mid-range price, the PST7s really fit the bill for that. So I think the PST7s is a value cymbal. Is there a difference between the PST7s and the 2002s? I think there's quite a difference. Otherwise, the 2002s really wouldn't have the reputation they have. I'm a big fan of the 2002s. I started with the Giant Beats and the 505s. My first crash cymbal that I had that was a Paiste 505, 16-inch crash. A few years back, I bought a 505 20-inch crash. And that got me back into buying Paiste cymbals back in the 2013-14 range. With that said, I went from that 505 to Giant Beats. And I like the Giant Beats. And the Giant Beats are B8 alloy. Like them a lot. I've got a 20-inch Giant Beat. I got a 24. I got an 18-inch thin Giant Beat. But when I bought the Paiste 2002 thin crash, 16-inch, I just said, wow, this is really nice. It's reminiscent of that old 505 I had. And then I bought an 18-inch crash, and I said, wow, this is really beautiful. Now, the other cymbal I have is the Paiste 2002 Big Beat 22-inch ride, which was the first 2002 I really bought before. I guess it was the second one, because I bought the 16 first, then I bought the 22-inch Big Beat. This is a different animal than 2002, the red 2002 cymbals. So when I bought the 22-inch 2002 ride, the one I use on a lot of videos on the kit in the other room, it's got a different sound. So, but it's all that same Paiste alloy, that V8 alloy. So I think the PST7s have a lot of the sound that the 2002s have, but they're not quite as refined as the 2002s sonically. So you're getting the best of the 2002 in a value cymbal, less lathing on it, less hammering. But I do think if you have the money and you can go for the 2002s, I would go for the 2002s. So, but if you're starting out with a value cymbal, I don't think there's a better value cymbal than the PST7s. Truthfully, they blow away the Sabian B8s. Anything Zildjian's got out in that value line stuff with their different alloys, Zildjian. If you're not in a B20 cymbal with a Zildjian, you're really not with a Zildjian. If you're not in a B20 cymbal with a Sabian, you're really not in a Sabian, a real Sabian. So the Sabians that are the remade cymbals, the SRs, they're better than the B8s. Sabian doesn't do B8. So if you're looking at B8 cymbals, the best B8 cymbals are Paiste. Of course, Paiste's PST7 is a B8 cymbal. I think it's going to be done much better than Sabian. So if you're in that price range of that Sabian B8 cymbal, B8 Pro, forget that, go the PST7s. If you can buy the upgraded cymbal, buy the 2002s. Great cymbals. Now, there's just so much more selection, too, when we talk about 2002s. And that's the other thing. Now, I am not a heavy cymbal guy. If I was a heavy, thick rock cymbal guy, I mean, there's a PST8 that's more of those heavier cymbals. I don't know anything about the PST8s. The PST7s are more like, they're the most closest to the 2002 middle range cymbals, the thins, the crashes, the medium rides. That you're going to find that closer in the PST7 to the mediums. If you're looking for power crashes, power rides, it's a different animal. It's not the PST7. So PST7s are more of a go-to all-purpose cymbal setup that's going to get you what you want if you don't have a lot of money. If you have the extra cash, I would go with the regular old Paiste 2002s. So that's my opinion of that, John. Thanks for the question. Hopefully it makes some sense to you all. All right, my next question comes from my friend Adam, an AR drummer. And AR drummer asked this question right here. And I've got a bunch of questions about cymbals, so we're going to stay on the cymbal theme. He says, another great Ask Earl Anything question. What's your opinion of the Paiste 1000s, 2000s, 3000 series by Paiste? I just bought a Paiste 2000 ride. That sounds great. I used to call them Paiste. Now they're Paistes. What do I think of the 2000s? The 2000s are the cymbals that came at the late 80s, middle to late 80s, and they came in when Paiste decided to get rid of the 2002 line, the 602 line, the 505 line, and the 404 line. So what you got with the Paiste 1000s, 2000s, and 3000s is you basically got a mixture of the 1000s being kind of like 505s and the 2000s kind of really being more like 505s, but close to 2002s. And then you got the 3000s that were supposed to be the replacement for the 2002s. I like the 2000s. I've got a Sound Edge Bottom 2000 that I use for a set of hi-hats that's on my other kit right now. It's a 505 bottom hi-hat top over top of a Paiste 2000 sound edge bottom. That they sound amazing. They're my own unique Paiste mixture of hi-hat sound, and I don't think that there's a pair of cymbals like them because they are not paired from the same series of cymbals. So having that 505 bottom on top of a 2000 bottom gives it something unique. Now, I did buy a 2000 Reflector Series 14-inch top, but that top on top of that 2000 bottom, regular bottom, doesn't really do it for me. The hi-hat top cymbal's a little bit lighter in weight than the chunkier bottom of the bottom 505. So what do I think about the 2000 ride cymbals? I think they're going to be great. They're probably in the ballpark of just like the 2000, just like the 505 ride cymbals. So if you can find a 22-inch 505 ride cymbal, they go for about as much money as a 2002 22-inch ride cymbal. I don't know what size. I think you said you had a 22 2000. I think that's probably a great sounding cymbal, and I think it's a keeper for me. I'd love to have one of those. So anytime you can find some 2000 regular cymbals, I think they're great. The sound reflectors got a little different vibe to them, and I'm not sure what they were going for with the reflectors. I think they were just going for flashier. And I think when you start talking about the mid to late 80s, everything was going flashier. That's when they introduced the color sound cymbals. When Paiste introduced the color sound 5 cymbals, basically what they were doing is they were putting out a flashier cymbal to market to the rock drummers that wanted to have certain looking kits. Flashy kits, colorful cymbals. Color Sounds 5s were really interesting cymbals, just like the Paiste 900 color cymbals. And by the way, there were color cymbals in the 2000 line. Was it the 2000 line or the 1000 line? Anyhow, I think they made some color cymbals in the 1000. I know they made in the 1000 line. I think they made in the 2000 line too. Bottom line is, color cymbals are a gimmick, but the Paiste 2000s are kind of like in between a 505 and a 2002. So I think they're great cymbals. If you can find 3000s, great cymbals. Just got to play them. Got to see if it's the sound you want. Now, they were making cymbals a little heavier in the 80s. So it's interesting how cymbals have kind of lightened up in the last 10 years. The Big Beat, this Big Beat 22, it's got a whole different sound than that 22-inch 2002 ride, But I dig it. I dig this cymbal for certain things. For other things, that cymbal's the cymbal. So I'm sure that 22-inch 2000 ride is probably a great cymbal. So that's a keeper, Adam. If I can find 2000s, I'm buying them. I'll tell you that right now, especially if you get a good price on them. Problem is, good prices on those cymbals are probably few and far between these days. All right, next question comes from Vince Gomez, and he asks the question, have you ever put anything between your hi-hats to mute a bright open sound? All right, I was supposed to bring a prop out. So, Vince, I'm going to get my prop, and I'm going to cut back into this. Okay, Vince, back again. So you asked me if I ever put anything to mute the hi-hat cymbal in any kind of way. Like, do I put something in between them? The answer is no, I've never done anything to mute in between. Now, I have done foam on a microphone to kind of shield the hi-hat. One of my favorite things to do to get a different hi-hat sound, especially with these hi-hats, these are the 14-inch Keropes. One of the things I like to do at church sometimes is I will put this African pod shaker, I will put it on the hi-hat. So that's the hi-hat without the pod shaker. Pod shaker. Without. That mutes it and gives it kind of like that weird pod sound. ever done to mute a pair of hi-hats. Put these pod shakers on it. Now, the other thing you could do is you could put, there's a jingle ring that Meinel makes. I have one of those too. You can drop it on and it gets a jingle sound. But this is kind of more of a muting effect. Just a thought. I don't know if that's what you were going after, Vince, with that question, but that's the only thing I could think of for that question was this, the pods. And I see a lot of guys do this. They put them on snare drums to mute the snare drums. I see them every once in a while put on a ride cymbal. I don't know, just a thought. Anyhow, that's one of my tricks. I use that occasionally. Hopefully that answers that question. So that's the one trick I said I would answer. All right, one more question from Vince. Vince asked another question. He said, in your opinion, what's the minor sound difference between the big beat and the Avedis cymbal used in this video? So I was doing Take the Long Train Home by Supertramp, and I had this ride cymbal up. It was the first weekend I had this cymbal, I believe. And he's asking, what's the difference in the sound of this cymbal with the Paiste 2002 big beat? To be honest, the difference is this is a Zildjian, that's a Paiste. That's a B8 cymbal, that's a B20 cymbal. When I think about effectively what range they're in pitch-wise, they're very close in pitch. They both got a lot of sustain. It's pretty. The overtones are not too wild on these cymbals. You know, sometimes you hit a cymbal and it's wild. I don't know. I kind of dig both of them. But then again, that's my ears for cymbals. I pick cymbals I like. When I heard this, I said, that's cool. I was going to buy a Giant Beat 22-inch ride. They had just come out with them that year. But I got a deal on this one that was well cheaper than the Giant Beat was. It was about $100 cheaper. And I bought this because it was slightly used from a drum shop in Maine. And I bought this cymbal, and I don't regret it. Both cymbals open up like crashes too, which is pretty cool. So I will say that this is a heavier cymbal. This is about 2,700 grams and change, and this is like 2,200 grams and change, which is kind of interesting that it's that much thinner, but they both sound really cool. I guess it has to do with the hammering pattern on this one, the lathing pattern on this one. I don't know. Why did I choose that for that video? Is because that was the first weekend I got this cymbal and I wanted to use it. So it's a great cymbal. I just did a bunch of videos that are jazz type videos, swing jazz kind of things. And one of them I used this cymbal on, one of them I used the Kerope on, one of them I used a Istanbul 21-inch Mel Lewis ride cymbal. So I have some really nice B20 cymbals that I don't play a lot. If I was playing more gigs out, I'd be using those cymbals mostly for those out gigs. I find the Paistes record easier though. So This cymbal sounds better than this cymbal does when I record it, believe it or not. Just cuts through a little bit, just bites through the track. That's the difference to me. All right, my next question comes from, let's see, new person, Victor Naja. And Victor Naja is asking me, what model drums are you using? And I believe on this particular session, I was using this kit. I was using an 8x12. I think I was using a 16x16 floor tom. I was doing "I'll Be Around" by the Spinners. It's a couple years old, this song. And I think the snare drum I was using was the 8x14 Black Magic snare drum. By the way, what's coming up next is going to be another video question, actually a video answer, because I had a question about my recording setup and my studio. And somebody wanted a studio tour. So that's going to be the next question. It's going to come from my friend Greg Oneoff. And in that next question, I actually go over here to my snare drum rack and I show you the Black Magic snare drum, which is pretty deep, pretty thick, pretty cool. But yeah, for the most part, this kit is 1979 Gretsch. It's got Jasper shells. It is maple poplar they call it, maple poplar or maple gum. I guess technically it's maple gum in the center, not poplar, it's maple gum. I always thought it was poplar in the middle, but it's not a pure maple shell. It's maple with gum wood in the middle, which is a cheaper wood, but it's that Gretsch sound. And that formula shell is magic for some people. So I find Gretsch shells to have a certain sound to them, the ones that are made with the gum in the middle. By the way, Pearl has done their version of the gum shell. DW's done their version of the gum shell. None of them really compare to the Gretsch version in my book, but that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. So, but yeah, this is the kit. Gretsch, Walnut, 1979. Pre-USA custom, because they didn't have such a thing as USA custom. They were just made in the USA. So very cool drums. When it comes to cymbals I was using Paiste on that video. I'm not sure which Paistes I was using. I think there was an 18-inch crash, a 16-inch crash. Could have been a 20, I don't remember. I have so many videos. I change my gear for every video, so you need to understand that. And I think the kit might have had emperor heads on it. It's a couple years back. All right, thanks for the question. My next question comes from my friend Greg Oneoff. And Greg asked another question on this show. But the first question he asked was, can you do a studio tour of your studio? So here is the studio tour. Thanks for the question, Greg. All right, this is from a question from Greg Oneoff, who asked me to do a studio tour of my studio, which is called Sanctuary Sound. It's also known as the Cave. I have some other affectionate little names for the studio, but it's been called the Cave for a while. So this is entering into the Cave or into Sanctuary Sound. Now there's two parts to the studio. Let's get through the door. When you first come through the door, you see my new neon sign which says live on air. That comes from my daughter Sandra and Aaron and the grandkids. That was my Christmas present, so that's going to be in a lot of my videos coming up. My first kit that you'll see is usually the Gretsch Walnut kit. Today it is in a jazz configuration. I have a 7-inch by 14 DMR solid walnut shell snare drum with straight edge hoops. I also have got the 12 and the 14 toms, 8x12, 14x14, and 14x20 bass drum. And I've got an assortment of Zildjian cymbals on the kit today for all you Zildjian lovers, which I do have a few. Today I'm using my 14-inch Keropes, 19-inch Kerope Crash, Ride, 22-inch Kerope, and the 19-inch beautiful baby Armand Ride with the 3 rivets. You'll also notice that I have a couple gongs behind me. These gongs are dream gongs. One is a 9-inch Schween gong, or a orchestral gong, small one, and then I've got an 18-inch wind gong. Now, off camera, and that's Studio B. We'll go in there in a few minutes. Now, off camera, we've got a rack of snare drums. Sometimes it gets in some videos. On my snare drum rack, just to go through my snare drums as of today, I've got my 6.5 by 14 DMR cast aluminum snare drum right next to a 5 by 14 Acura Light with a die-cast top hoop, a 6.5 by 14 Gretsch walnut snare drum, which is maple, but it's got the walnut finish like my drum kit. I did not get it with my drum kit. There's a story to that. And my Noble Cooley 5 by 14 solid shell Noble Cooley that I had repainted by Noble Cooley a couple years back. Also down below, I've got a 8 by 14 Black Magic, a 5 by 14 chrome over brass Gretsch with the lightning throw off, the real old lightning throw off. Then I've also got a Omar Hakim, which is a 5 by 13 mahogany drum, and a 5 by 13 Grover fiberglass snare drum. If you go up top, you'll see some more snare drums. There's my Black Beauty 6.5 by 14. I have my Steve Jordan 6.5 by 13 snare drum. And if you go up at top over here, I have some more snare drums. I've got my son-in-law's 3 by 13 Pearl Piccolo, which I used maybe once. And I've got a Grover 6.5 by 14 fiberglass. And I've got those wonderful Alesis drums up top. So the Alesis E-kit that Matthew Jackson gave me, I used on a video recently for Emmanuel, Amy Grant Christmas, the Simmons sounds. You can also see my collection of DVDs, drum catalogs, drum magazines, Modern Drummer. I've got a stick bag full of wonderful mallets and brushes and all kinds of craziness. And I've got some brand new ProMart sticks. These are all new sticks in that bag. These are all percussion mallets, etc. It's my son's bass guitar, which is now my bass guitar, Fender Precision Mexico bass. Then I've got some more sticks. These are assorted sticks, all different types. I have a whole bunch of microphones and stuff in this case over here. Some are in use, some are just the boxes, but a lot of them are not in use. They're in the boxes. Got a Rode NTKs, got 2 of those. And you can find some assorted drum parts and other things. And you'll see heads down below, extra heads, unused heads, used heads, whatever. I've got a whole pile of percussion. This is in here is percussion. Don't even know what to tell you. If you need percussion, I got percussion. I've got microphones, I've got eggs, I've got mufflers. I've got some splash cymbals over here. I've got some missing hardware in this one. There's all kinds of crazy stuff here. I keep my hi-hats on this little stand just so I easy get access to them. And here's some of my leftover toms. Yes, these are the rest of the Gretsch walnut kit. 8 by 8, 8 by 10, 9 by 13, 16 by 16. And then behind that, I've got the 6-inch, which is a 6 by 11 Tama Octobon, which is my 6-inch tom for my fiberglass kit. I got an 8, 5.5 by 8, 6.5 by 10, 6.5 by 10, and a 9 by 13 that goes with that kit that's right there in Studio B. So when we go into Studio B, you can see the lighting, the crazy lighting I've got. It all depends on the day of the week. I've got lights in the back. This is the interesting new light feature up top. You'll see the lights change. As I'm pointing at it, you really don't see the lights change, but when you look down at the cymbals, you do see the lights change because they are different colors up top. And I've got them on kind of a rotating thing. So let's go from the back over here. So this is my transport. This is what I usually use to kind of my iPad for getting in. So
Can't put that on camera. My grandson might see the code. I don't want him to do that. Anyhow, that's my transport for running things. I just did a drum cover, Steely Dan. And then I've got my 5x14 Black Beauty, an array of Paiste cymbals, 16 thin crash, 18 crash, 20-inch 505 I've been enjoying the heck out of with some sizzler on it, my 20-inch PSTX with the crack on it, and my 22-inch ride. And then I've got my 10, 12, 14, 16, 15 concert toms with my 22-inch Gretsch kit drum with Ludwig lugs on it, or castings on it. You can see I've also drilled in a tom mount on that, an assortment of microphones. These are two AKG C1000s. That's an Octava 319, MK319. I've got an SM57. Got my overheads right here. These are Octava MK012s. They're actually mounted to the ceiling. Okay. You see I've got a bar here. That's for my lights. And you can see I've got microphone. I got things I've created for my cameras. These are actually holders for to hold onto your belt that I've turned into camera stands attached to a goose. You can see I'm not real traditional in what I do. That's a selfie stick that somebody sent me for some silly reason. I won't get into that, but it actually works really well on a multi-clamp. And I have my other iPhones on these. And back here, what is this back here? Oh, some congas and the back door and a mattress. Oh, and I've also got that wonderful thing right there. That's my Chase Lounge that my wife had in our bedroom for a couple of years. Oh, as I make my way out, you'll see this is what I use to stand on to set up my camera sometimes. This is my cajon. One of my cajones. I have two cajones. Here's some extra stands. And this is my other little Gretsch kit. This is my maple Gretsch kit with an 18-inch bass drum, 14 by 18, 14 by 14 Catalina maple floor tom with die-cast hoops, 8 by 12 round badge Gretsch tom, and then I've got a 6.5 by 10 double-headed tom, which is actually a concert tom converted into a double-headed tom from the 70s. So that's pretty much my kits. One more thing I want to say about this kit, which I didn't include. I have my Tama Classic hardware cymbal stands up for the jazz kit this week. So that kind of makes things a little bit different. So you got the Tama Classic hardware on there. They look a little neater. That's where that other hardware came from. Look at all these cymbals. Also, there's a bunch of cymbals down here too that I can't even get into all the cymbals I got. Too much. And then I've got some percussion over here. Some djembes. This is my favorite djembe, by the way. This is a favorite too. My son gave me this one. My wife gave me that one in 2001. My grandson beat it with a stick. That's why it's got little dings in it. There's a darbuka back there, way in the back. This is the studio couch if you get to hang out here. And then we've got a rack of gear. This is my 7-circle audio preamps. I've got a headphone amplifier. I've got a patch bay. I've got my Presonus StudioLive 24 by 4 by 2. And then you've got my Mac with two Dyna Audio BM5As speakers and Logic up here right now. So that's the studio tour. You have any other questions about it? Feel free to ask. Things change. They always change. Nothing stays the same in my studio for very long, except that this kit seems to be staying the same. Right now I got the 8 by 10 up there instead of the 6.5 by 10. But anyhow, that's all I got to say. Anyhow, thanks for the question, Greg.
My next question comes from a person named A, and it was on the video, The History of Concert Toms, Pearl Fiberglass Concert Toms and Hal Blaine. And he asked the question, what is your take on head choice for a set of Vistalite concert toms? I'm currently using pinstripes, but thinking about changing them out to black dots. Sound-wise, I think they could sound better with a head change. What are your thoughts? All right. First off, about concert toms. I have a set of Pearl Fiberglass concert toms. Presently, I've got pinstripes on them. Presently, the pinstripes sound great. I was actually shocked how great the pinstripes sounded this year. I put those on almost a year ago, and they have been amazing. My next question is, what am I going to buy? Am I going to buy another set of pinstripes? Am I going to go with emperors? Am I going to go with coated heads? Because I like to change things up. I like to get a different vibe and different sound. But to be honest, those pinstripes have sounded great all year round. So let me say this about CS Black Dots. CS Black Dots were the original concert tom head. Matter of fact, when these Pearl fiberglass concert toms came out, Pearl always put black dot heads on their concert toms. I have a catalog from 1975 with Pearl concert toms, all black dot heads. Black dot heads, CS black dot heads, were big in the 70s. John Bonham made them famous with that Amber Vistalite kit. You can't go wrong with black dot heads. They're focused. I love them on snare drums. I love a snare drum with a CS head on it. I do like black dot heads. They are a little different vibe. They're cool. I don't know if I would go for them on the concert toms, though, for me. But they might be exactly what you need to make your concert toms sing. They're going to give you a focused sound. That's what the dot does. It focuses the middle. You hit it somewhere in the middle. It really does. And you tune them down. They're kind of cool. About 10 years ago, I had black dots for this kit. And I loved it. It was a great change. 10-inch, 12-inch, 8-inch, 13, 14, 16. Black dot tops, clear bottoms. Great kit. Great sounding kit. But I wasn't going to buy them again. I had to go for something different. So I went for ambassadors. I started going towards ambassadors, vintage ambassadors, emperors. I've done clear emperors. I've done G2. I've done just about every head there is out there. I've even done some Aquarian heads. I've done attack heads. But do I think the black dots will work on your drums? Sure, I think they'll work great. Will you get what you're getting with your pinstripes? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on what you're willing to do to them. If you're a guy that thinks you put heads on and you never put anything on the heads to mute them, to record, you're out of touch. The truth of the matter is, to record drums, you've got to mute drums, you've got to muffle drums, you got to get the weird overtones out. Microphones pick that crap up. So I've learned how to do that. Now, today I've got a drum right now. This is a jazz tuning of this drum. This 12 is higher pitched than it normally is. I actually tighten the bottom head. They're actually close. They're almost exact. I never do that. I usually have my bottom heads tuned a little bit lower. But to get this jazz tuning, I had to tune the heads closer to one another. And some jazz guys tune the bottom heads even tighter than the top head. Now, I usually don't do that with double-headed drums. My other drums got a different thing. When it comes to concert toms, you got one head. So if you don't get the one head right and in the ballpark where you want it, you're going to have to muffle. Muffling's okay. I recommend moon gel. I recommend duct tape or gaff tape or a piece of paper towel. Okay, there's lots of different ways to muffle. Or you can build your own little foam mufflers and tape them on, and they can kind of mute and dampen. All kinds of cool ways to mute and dampen heads. Lots of opportunities to do it. But the idea that you're going to tune perfect tuned drums, put microphones on them, and they're going to sound perfect, that's rarely the case. Muting drums is probably one of the most important aspects of recording. And I don't know many studio guys that don't mute a drum once in a while. This happens to be wide open. I actually recorded it wide open. So when you see the jazz covers I do, they're wide open, the toms. But snares, not so much, not always. There might be a piece of something on that snare drum to get that sound. So keep that in mind. You may have to put something on black dot heads, is what I'm saying. I like pins, so I'm a big fan of the pins. I may even buy another set of them. They were that good. So that's my thoughts on that. But black dots will definitely look cool. I think I even said if you may want a lively sound CS heads, ambassador heads are more wide open. Pinstripes seem perfect for live and dead. Emperors are that fat sound. So 2-ply heads for the fat sound. 1-ply heads, if you want it really open, the Ambassador clears are really open. If you want the dot sound, it's going to give you more focus. So CS works. If you like a little bit of a muting, that's what the pinstripes were made for. They gave that dead sound. And by the way, let me say something else about the pinstripes, since I'm talking about that. The pinstripe heads of today are different than the pinstripe heads of 10 years ago even. On that concert tom kit, I've got a 15-inch tom, and that 15-inch tom has got a different head than the rest of them. They all were bought from Sweetwater, even the 15. But the 15 was old stock, and I can tell because it sounds deader. Pinstripes are more lively today. So if you go pinstripes, you're getting a more lively drum sound than 10 years ago. 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, they were still making that head a little thicker to sound more dead, and I think they've opened it up to make it sound a little more alive. So be aware of that. Not all pins are the same anymore. If you got an older pin, it's going to sound deader than the newer pins. The newer pins seem a little bit more lively. All right. My next question comes from my student, Sean Woodley, and he wanted to ask a question about French grip. He said, I guess this would be for Ask Earl Anything. If you play French grip, how would you approach open-handed 16th notes? All right, so what he's asking me is, and I don't play French grip. French grip is this grip, right? He likes to play French grip. Okay? French grip is timpani grip to me. How would you approach doing... I think you'd approach it the same way. But you should use your fingers because the French grip allows finger control. Part of the French grip is using the fingers. So I think you've got to squeeze the fingers and work the fingers. And truthfully, if you're playing French grip, you've got to get your fingers engaged. Now, I don't play French grip. I remember taking timpani in college, and timpani in college was all about working on that. I got it on my right hand, but I don't have it on my left. My left just seems a little not together. So if you're going to work on 16th notes like that, what you want to do is you want to work your fingers. And see, my approach for 16th is overhanded. I don't know, Sean, that helps. This, practice pad, work the fingers. That's French grip. That's how you do it. So you do exercises like, or you can do the one that I've shown before is 1, 2, 1, 2. It's always good to do it with a metronome and keep the time. I kind of started a little fast, so I couldn't keep my thing, but that's one of the ways you can practice this. So the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, the 5s, the 6s, and then back up. If you want to get crazy, you do it to 8s. But I don't do that too often. Anyhow, that's my thought on that, Sean. Thanks for the question. My next question comes from my friend Steve the drummer, and he says, looking at your equipment list, I didn't realize you're using a 6.5 by 14 Black Beauty. I got a B stock version a few years ago, struggling a bit with the tuning. I like the tone when it's tuned high, but tuned low, not so much. What heads, muffling, and tuning are you using? It sounds great. Now, I did a video about how to tune a Black Beauty snare drum. I recommend you watching that video. I know Steve did watch that video. The tuning I use on my, well, let's put it this way. The heads I use on my Black Beauty snare drums, both of them, is a CS black dot coated on the top. The bottom head is tuned up higher than the top. That's one of the rules. I use some kind of muffling on the drums, be it moon gel or a zero ring. I recommend that. That Black Beauty 6.5x14 took a while to figure out its tuning, what works for it. I even bought new snares for the bottom. I bought a set of the Kerope snares on the bottom. I think they're the 20-strand snares. So I was trying to find the right snares for the bottom of the head. I was doing everything to get that drum to sound great. One of the things I realized is my 5x14 Black Beauty sounds better than my 6.5x14. That's the truth. So you need a 6.5x14 if you're doing a lot of rock sessions. That's the sound. It's a certain sound that has that vibe. It's that 6.5x14 vibe. It's a certain sound, a certain place, a certain tuning. I found it. I make it work. Watch the video. Maybe I'll show a little piece of it. The moon gel. Get the picture? If we add the zero ring, watch that video. But truthfully, the sound that's most versatile is the 5x14 Black Beauty. The drum that I found to be the best, my best snare drum, is my 5x14 Black Beauty snare drum. By the way, Jeff Porcaro liked that drum. A lot of guys like that drum. Carlos Vega liked that drum. It's very much like the Supraphonic, except for it's brass. And I played one back in the 80s, and I played a brass Supraphonic 5x14, and it was the sound when I heard that drum come in my studio. My friend Ken told this story before. It was the sound when I bought the drum. I traded the drum, my bronze Ludwig hand-hammered bronze 6.5x14 was getting the same kind of sound I was getting out of that brass 6.5x14 Black Beauty. It just boxy sounded to me. So I gave up that drum, handed it to my friend, and took that Ludwig Black Beauty 5x14. I've never regretted it. That is the drum. So if I was recommending somebody buy a Black Beauty, I'd recommend you buy a 5x14. It's got the sound. That's the vibe. Anyhow, cool. Thank you so much. 2 more questions. I have 2 more questions for you. Here's my next question from Marcio Combra. Okay, I think he's Spanish. It was on the Drops of Jupiter video. He says, hi, I'm a fan from Brazil. I love the emotions in your songs. Then he went on to ask me a question. The second question, he said, could you recommend some methods about groove and independence exercises? I have a drum, but in a big way, I want to improve as a drummer. Regards from Brazil. All right, independence exercises. First off, there's a couple books you can buy. If you want to learn how to play rock drumming independence, I would say the Carmen Appice book, Realistic Rock. Great starting point, reading the page. It shows together. It shows the kind of like your hands going together. And then your feet going together. It shows that on a page. Realistic Rock's got some great rock beats. Great book. If you want some other independence books, there's a book called Advanced Technique for the Modern Drummers, which has the jazz stuff. everything's based on that beat, that jazz skip beat, whatever you want to call it, the swing beat. 2 and 4 on the hi-hat, 1 and 3, 4 on the kick drum. And then you read the line with this. So those are 2 books I use to develop independence. Really, that's what you have to do, is sit down with something that gets you started in getting your limbs to do 2 different things at the same time. So once you get that 2 and 4 thing down, you can amp it up by going quarter notes. Okay? You can add quarter notes there. If you're doing a rock thing, do 8 notes. Okay? There's lots of different things you can do. Once you have a book and the basic pattern, then you can start adding more stuff to it. Change your hi-hat patterns, add quarter notes, 8th notes, 2 and 4. Kick drum patterns with the snare drum, that's your melody kind of stuff. And of course your ostinato stuff is usually your ride pattern. So let's say you're playing the realistic rock book, simple pattern is this. Idea. Keep switching up the ostinato on the hi-hat. I just created 5 or 6 different things based on the same basic bass drum pattern. So that's how you work on independence. You take simple beats and you change them up and you add something different to it. And you put a little different spice on it. So you can do that in a book. Or you can take what the book says and then you can take yourself outside of it a little bit. There's lots of different ways to go with this. I work on different things for different reasons. So I hope that helps you, Marcio. So I hope that helps you. Hope you enjoyed that short lesson. By the way, if anybody wants a lesson from me, I do Skype lessons or FaceTime lessons or some kind of a live video lesson. I have done that. One of my students asked a question today. His name was Sean Woodley, the one with the French grip. All right. The next question and the last question is going to come from my friend Greg One-Off. Now, he already asked one question before. He was watching a video I did with my friend CCM drummer, Matthew Jackson. It was a collaboration called Alive and Well. By the way, the video of me just playing that song will come out someday. I don't know when though. Someday it will come out. Watching CCM drummer play open-handed made me wonder why all of us don't start learning open-handed drumming instead of cross-handed. Maybe that could be discussed on Ask Earl Anything. There must be a reason. Anyway, have a wonderful Christmas week, my hammering friend. So, the question that Greg wants to ask is, because my friend Matthew Jackson is big on open-handed drumming. Open-handed drumming is this. Open-handed drumming is this. Now, why do I not play open-handed for the most part? I just played a little bit open-handed, but I don't play open-handed because I can't make that feel like I make this feel. The way I approach the beat with the overhand for me, 47, 48 years of playing drums, there's no comparison that this comparison that I play more comfortably that way. So why don't I play open-handed? That's the reason why. Because I'm not very good at it. And for me, it's like relearning how to play drums. Now, Matthew Jackson will tell his story, and his story is he started to play open-handed drumming his second go-round in drumming. His first go-round, he played this way, overhanded. He even played traditional grip. By the way, why did I start playing drums this way? Because this is how I learned how to play drums. Right-handed, right-footed, I'm a righty, and this is how everybody played drums. That was how we learned. We learned to play traditional grip. I've learned to not play traditional grip. I play match grip usually, sometimes like this. That's another question for another day. So, why don't I play match grip? Why don't I play open-handed? Because doesn't feel the same way to me. Now, if I want to relearn how to play drums at 48 years into my career, I would start working on that. You probably noticed I don't play one. There's one drum cover that everybody plays. It's called, what's it called? Don't Stop Believing. That's this one. Let's see if I can attempt that. Can't do it. Until I can play that song the right way, you will not see that song in my playlist. Why? Because Steve Smith plays it right. Now, it really is a simple... But it's all this little melody stuff that he does with his right hand. I can't do it. Just doesn't add up for me. So, bottom line. Should new drummers learn how to play open-handed? Yeah. My grandson, Asher, his father's a lefty. If I was teaching his father to play today, being a lefty, I would teach him open-handed. I'd say play open-handed. Asher's not a lefty, I don't believe. I would say to Asher, if I'm teaching him, learn how to play open-handed. If you can learn how to play open-handed and play right-handed, both ways, ambidextrous, you're going to be that much better a drummer in the future. So definitely do it. But if you're old like me, you're going to play the way you play. And that's what's going to work for you. And that's what works for me. So that's why I play the way I play. So Greg, you bring up a good question, but it's one of those questions that's just not going to get answered any other way than to say, I'm going to play the way I play. I say anybody who wants to play open-handed, great, God bless you. Awesome. If you ever see me play open-handed, it's me trying. I do practice it. I do try sometimes. But if I can't get it to feel as good as I make it feel overhanded, It ain't happening. All right. That's it for Ask Earl Anything. A lot of questions. A lot of little videos to splice in. A lot of fun stuff going on. Go to my Teespring store, my spring store. Buy a t-shirt if you like. Buy a coffee mug like John did. Buy nothing if you don't want to buy anything. That's fine too. Please like and subscribe. Please share with other people so that others can become part of the Earldrum community. I appreciate everybody that watches my videos. I thank you all for watching. I pray you have a happy new year. Remember, this show is all about your questions. Without questions, we don't have a show, so please ask some questions. Thank you all for the questions that came this month. Everybody, have a great January, and I will see you again next month on Ask Earl Anything. Thank you. Bye-bye.